Welcome to the podcast that will teach you how to successfully invest in and build steady streams of passive income from the highly lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. Veteran real estate investors Kevin Bupp and Charles Dehart from Mobile Home Park Academy will personally share with you the valuable lessons they've learned along their journey as mobile home park investors, so that you too can learn how to build massive cash flow and huge profits from this extremely lucrative niche. So without further ado, let's welcome your hosts for today's show, Kevin Bupp and Charles Dehart.
Welcome, guys and gals, to the Mobile Home Park Academy's weekly podcast. We'll provide all the information that you need to know to successfully locate, negotiate, close on, and make huge profits from the lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. I'm your host, Kevin Bupp, and in today's show, we're going to be speaking with successful mobile home park investor and modular home builder, Joel Camino. Now, Joel entered into the mobile home park business at the young age of 22 and encountered his fair share of challenges and struggles with his very first mobile home park investment, including a failing Lagoon septic system, many abandoned homes, unruly tenants, and really the list goes on and on. But even with all these huge obstacles staring him down, Joel's been able to work through each and every one of them and turn his very first investment into a strong performer. Now, just to provide full disclosure, and so not to confuse you as you start listening to today's interview, this interview was actually recorded more than 1 year ago for my other podcast, the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. And I only tell you this because you'll quickly notice that the show format is slightly different from our normal structure. And I actually meant to release this show a long time ago, but somehow it accidentally got misplaced and it fell through the cracks. And actually, it never came out. So, Joel, if you're listening to this show today, please accept my apologies for the long delay in releasing our show together. Okay, so real quickly before we get on to the show with Joel, I just have a few items I want to run through with you guys. First off, tomorrow is the big day, Turkey Day, Thanksgiving, guys. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I have to say that I have a mile-long list of things that I'm personally thankful for, and I'm not going to bore you guys with all of them because that would be really a show in itself. So, but it's my stage, right? This is my stage. This is my show. I can speak my mind if I want. So, whether you like it or not, I'm going to go ahead and give you at least my top 5 things that I'm incredibly grateful for and I'm thankful for. And it's not just Thanksgiving; it's every day. These things I'm grateful for. So, number one spot obviously goes to my beautiful wife Joanna, who is I consider her a super mom, and she's by far the best partner in crime that I could have ever asked for. Okay, and I've actually got a funny story about how Joanna and I met. So if we ever have the opportunity of meeting and hanging out, be sure to ask me about that funny and interesting story of how Joanna and I met. Number 2 of things that I'm incredibly grateful and thankful for: my 4-year-old son Jackson and my 1-year-old son Julian. These little 2 guys are really the highlight of my day, each and every day. And I'm serious about that. I literally can't get enough of them. And for those of you who are her mothers or fathers, I'm assuming you can surely understand where I'm coming from with that. This parent thing, I never knew it before we had kids, but this parent thing is such a ride, man. It's so much fun. I absolutely love every single minute and second of it, okay? Number 3, things that I'm grateful and thankful for: my business. Now, these past few years have been absolutely incredible, and not just in the monetary sense, guys, but also in working with an awesome team and meeting also so many of you and helping you in your journey to success in this mobile home park niche. Now, I will tell you that I get a ton of pleasure out of hearing success stories, and I look forward to helping each and every one of you find your way within this crazy niche of mobile home parks, okay? So that's the third one, my business, that I'm incredibly grateful and thankful for. Number 4, my friends. I've been blessed, absolutely blessed with some incredible friends. Friends that are there for me no matter what's happening in life, the good, the bad, the ugly. Friends that I can lean on when facing challenging times. Friends that don't judge. They don't pass judgment whatsoever. Friends that make me an overall better person, okay? Incredibly grateful and thankful for all the friends that I have in my life. And the 5th one, again, I've got a whole list, but I'm just going to give you 5. The 5th thing that I am incredibly grateful and thankful for, and I'm dead serious about this, I'm thankful for each and every one of you, because without you, there wouldn't be this podcast. Your being here brings a purpose to our mission here at the Mobile Home Park Academy, and I want to thank you for giving me this awesome gift, okay? So thank you so much. Those are the top 5 that I have. Again, I've got a whole list, but I'm not going to bore you guys with the remainder of that list, okay? Because it would be a whole show in itself. So have a wonderful Thanksgiving, guys. Enjoy and cherish spending time with your friends and the family, and just take some time to reflect on all the wonderful things that have happened in your life, or that are that present themselves as opportunities in the future here moving forward. Okay, guys, just a couple more quick things I want to run through. We just closed on our most recent acquisition, so I'm excited to tell you about this one. This is a 4-star, 122-space mobile home park located in the Buffalo MSA, so Buffalo, New York. It's in Akron, New York. It's about 25 minutes from downtown Buffalo. It's a little village. Gorgeous park. Absolutely, probably one of the nicest parks that I've ever been through. And the only reason I gave it a 4 star is because it doesn't have amenities, but it's got a lot of double wides, lots of 2-car attached garages, concrete driveways, curbs, sidewalks. It's absolutely gorgeous, okay? In fact, I'm going to be releasing a video drive-through podcast here in the coming weeks so that you can actually see it firsthand. And it's just beautiful. That's all I can say about it. It's absolutely beautiful. And this is by far the nicest community that we own to date. I mean, we own some other nice communities, but this one is the nicest one that we own today. And like I mentioned, it's probably one of the nicest parks I've actually ever even been through personally. A large number, again, of the homes are double wides. Most of them have 1 or 2-car attached garages with breezeways that are custom built. And the average sales price for used mobile homes that sell in this community hovers around $85,000. And there's some comps that have sold for as high as $120,000. Okay, and these are used homes. It's crazy. Now, the exciting part of this deal is that the park is 98% occupied. There's 122 lots and 120 are occupied. Okay, it's in excellent shape and has lot rents that are approximately 30 to 40% below market. Now, there are 2 parks right down the road, one being equally as nice, while the other one is a few notches below ours in quality. And the lowest rents between these 2 communities right down the road start at $470 a month, and they go as high as $530 a month, okay? Our rents today in this community range from $260 to $290, okay? So we're way below market, and we have I say it's the nicest because our park is located in town. It's in the village. It's within walking distance to great schools. It's within walking distance to the shops and the restaurants in this little village. It's just a wonderful deal altogether. We're incredibly excited about it. We're actually able to structure some very attractive owner financing terms with the seller, and we look forward to placing some long-term Fannie Mae or CMBS debt in place in a few years once we get rents up to market. Anyway, I don't want to spoil the details. I just say be on the lookout in the coming weeks for that drive-through video podcast where I'll actually walk you through step-by-step everything about that acquisition, okay? So that's coming up here either next week or the following. And then that leads me on to my next point. My team and I are always seeking out high-net-worth individuals who have an interest in partnering with us on mobile home park deals, just like this one here in New York, and the other ones that I've mentioned, okay, previously. We have other deals in the pipeline. We have other parks in contract, and we're seeking accredited investors who are interested in putting their hard-earned money to work for them. And what we feel is one of the most proven asset classes known to man, okay, mobile home parks. So if you have an interest and you would like more information about working with us, you can download our investment prospectus by going to our website, sunrisecapitalinvestors.com. Again, sunrisecapitalinvestors.com. Lastly, if you happen to be in the Tampa Bay area, I'd love to meet you. So shoot me an email when you're coming into town, kevin@kevinbupp.com. That is my personal email address. Just let me know when you're coming to visit, and let's see if we can coordinate a time to get together during your time in town. Okay, guys? So without further ado, I'd like to get on to the interview with Joel Camino. So here we go. All right, guys. Today on the show, we're honored to be joined by mobile home and modular home expert Joel Camino. Joel got a start in real estate investing at the young age of 22 by purchasing a mobile home park using private investor money. But this first investment didn't go as planned and soon became Joel's albatross. In fact, he had to take a job in an RV factory just to make ends meet and pay the bills, as his park was losing about $4,000 per month. Fast forward 4 years, and all this hard work has paid off, and now the park is financially healthy and generating a very strong monthly cash flow. In addition to his mobile home community, Joel also owns a modular home dealership and construction business, which is poised for substantial growth over the next few years. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Joel Camino to the show. Joe, how you doing today?
Good, very good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and I'm very excited to talk to you about your story, because as you know, and as all the listeners know, that my niche is mobile home parks, and that's what we've been investing in for almost 5 years now. And my background prior to that was multifamily as well as single family homes, but for the past 5 years, all I've really done were mobile home parks, and so I've seen a lot, I've heard a lot, and but I can't tell you that I can personally relate to a little bit of what I read about your story, Joel, with regards to your first experience with a mobile home park. But before we dig into the story, because I'm excited to hear it, and I think our listeners, I think we can learn a lot of lessons from your story, really, at least as it pertains to buying your first mobile home park. But before we dig in there, maybe give our listeners a little bit more of a background about yourself, and really just even how you got involved in real estate to start off.
Yeah, well, I like to say that my first experience with mobile home parks was when I was 4 years old. Okay, my dad actually. Okay, so he came over. He's from Australia originally. Came over with $300 in his pocket. Met my mom. The rest is history, as they say. But the first job he ever had me do, like I said, when I was 4, was running phone lines under our mobile home. I was born in a mobile home, and we lived in a trailer park and just a dinky little thing. And so he had me crawling under there, running phone lines for him. So that was really my start in the mobile home industry, I like to say. But I don't know. Fast forward then, of course, I graduated from high school, did a couple years in college. Really wasn't working out for me. I looked at where I was at 3 years into college. I had about 2 years worth of stuff done because I was working full time for my dad at the time and trying to do college full time with a full, 18 credit hour workload. Just wasn't happening. And at that time is actually when I bought my first park. It was a deal that my dad had heard of through a realtor friend of his. And long story short, there was an investor that I was talking to, a private investor, who had some money that he wanted to invest, and we ended up putting the deal together and buying it. It was a tax sale, so we ended up buying that park, and that's when I basically started in the mobile home park industry. I was doing a lot of maintenance and stuff myself, remodeling homes, etc. But like you said, yeah, it was very much negative cash flowing right off the bat. Yeah, we didn't have any financials on the property. Since it was a tax sale, the guy who owned it was in foreclosure or bankruptcy or whatever he was in. And so it was just a messy deal. Couldn't get financials, couldn't get titles for the homes, couldn't get copies of leases, nothing. So we pretty much went into it blind. Purchase price was so good that it didn't really matter. Of course, it does matter because we were negative. But, and that's when, like you said, I had to go and actually get an RV job. And I was 22 years old at the time. I had to go work in an RV factory to pay the bills, and then, nights and weekends out there fixing up homes.
Oh my gosh. That sounds like a busy lifestyle.
Yeah, it was fun. Fortunately, I wasn't married at the time, so I had the time to do it. I'd work till 9, 10 o'clock at night, go home and wake up at 4 in the morning and do it again.
Oh my gosh. So was that your very first real estate investment? Prior to that, you had never owned a single family home or duplex or anything whatsoever. That was your very first investment.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when I was 18, I bought a really old mobile home in a park and fixed it up and tried to rent it out, and I probably made a couple $1,000s on that. But yeah, I mean, as far as any real investment, that was my very first actual real estate transaction. Yep.
Oh boy, yeah, trial by fire, right? So tell me some of the details on this park. Give us some of the particulars. Approximate location. I think it was in Ohio, right? I don't know what area it's in, but it's in northern Indiana, actually. Indiana, okay.
Most people probably familiar with South Bend, Indiana. It's one of the bigger cities around here, and then Fort Wayne, Indiana is another big one. It's kind of between South Bend and Fort Wayne, I guess. 41 spaces. When we got it. When I say we, I mean I. When I got it, it was probably 60% occupied. It was collecting about 50% of what it should have been every month. Collections were terrible. Delinquency was horrendous. There was trash everywhere. Cars up on jacks. Real nasty looking place. And that's how we went into it. So, yeah. Okay. So 41 spaces. How many of those were actually tenant-owned homes, and how many were park-owned? Because you had mentioned something about not being able to get titles for homes, and so I'm assuming that there was some component of park-owned rentals that you were acquiring with the sale. Yeah, there was a fair number of park-owned homes. Most of those, like I said, did not have, well, all of them didn't have titles, and pretty much all of them, I had no idea what the deal was that the previous owner had with the tenant. So honestly, I just went around and talked to people and said, hey, what did this guy sell this home to you for? How long have you been in here? And tried to put together some sort of an agreement from that point to sell the home. And I wanted to honor what the previous owner had set up with them. I didn't want to rip anyone off and say, oh, sorry, now it's mine, and you have to pay me $10,000 for it, even though you've lived here for 6 years. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to clean things up a bit, clean the books up, if you will. So I kind of went in, and there was probably 6 or 7 park-owned homes at the time, and a lot of them were in pretty bad shape. I junked quite a few homes initially. Hired a local guy to come out and paid him. I think I paid him like $300 to tear the home down and supplied him some dumpsters, and he scrapped all the metal. So don't necessarily recommend doing that unless you have the right guy. But he did a good job, cleaned a lot up for me. And that's how I got rid of some of those first ones. But yeah, probably 6 or 7 park-owned homes, and the rest were tenant-owned. And that's kind of how we were right off the bat. Yeah.
And this park was on public or private utilities?
Private utilities. Yeah, that's a story in and of itself.
That's your first learning experience, huh? That's one of them. Yeah.
That's the fire part of the baptism by fire. Private utilities. So it had a lagoon, and so it was a package, what they call package plants, where it's like a couple aeration tanks and a clarifying tank, and then there's a lagoon where it's supposed to clean everything up afterwards, but the lagoon was causing more problems than it was actually solving. Right off the bat, and this is like, so we closed on the park in December of 2009, and I went to Australia with a couple of friends of mine, and we're over there having a good time, and I get a phone call from my dad, and he's like, you might want to come back early because IDEM is all over this park. They're crawling around, writing things up, having a cow, and what had happened, which is probably illegal, but an IDEM enforcement officer had plugged up the outflow to the lagoon. So this thing was filling up at about 6,000 gallons a day in the dead of January, like the middle of winter, freezing cold outside. This thing's plugged up. He's not letting any flow go through. He said, you got to fix this and that and the other before we can unplug this. So anyways, I ended up spending about $12,000 to pump that lagoon out right off the bat. And that pretty much ate up all of our initial cash that we had got outside of the purchase price of the property from the investor. That pretty much ate up all of our cash reserves going into it right off the bat, like within the first 30 days.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a nightmare.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, that is a nightmare. You got some gray hairs from that one, I bet, especially the fact that you were out of the country when all this happened. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you still have the lagoon today, and I'm assuming that the package plant lagoon, the whole process is running as it should, correct?
Yeah. So, well, actually, we don't have the lagoon anymore. Excuse me. Part of what IDEM wanted me to do, Indiana Department of Environmental Management, they govern lagoons and treatment plants, et cetera. They wanted me to work on this plant and upgrade it over time, and so on and so forth. Actually, one of the officers, enforcement officers, actually I think wanted to buy the park, and so when I bought it, he kind of was he had a bird in his saddle about that, and really just gave me a hard time over the next couple of years. But part of eventually what we ended up doing was get rid of that lagoon, which was a very good move. It cost me about $35,000 to do, but fortunately, the time that we did it, I mean, I kind of put it off for as long as possible, but when it came down to really have to get this thing done, fortunately we had the cash to do it and was able to get rid of that. So now it's functioning well. We did some other upgrades, added another tank, and I have a certified operator running it and everything. And we got rid of that lagoon, solved a bunch of problems there. So it is definitely going a lot better than it was previously.
So do you have to fill that lagoon in once you get rid of it? I mean, like, what's the remediation process like on a lagoon?
Yeah, so you basically, I had to hire an engineer for the whole project. I think I paid him like $6,000 or so, which was actually really cheap compared to everyone else that had quoted the job. But part of the overall process was adding a buffer tank, so when we have rain and infiltration into the septic system, it doesn't overflow and give problems to the treatment plant. So we had to add that tank, and then the lagoon part, you just have to you file an application and get a permit to remove it. Basically, you got to drain the thing out, dry it out, haul off all the old sludge and junk that's on the bottom, and then you fill it in, grade it out and seed it, and you're done. So sounds really easy, but it's expensive, and when items on your back, it's not very fun.
So,
but I think that gives me a good perspective, moving forward. So,
would you buy another park again that had private utilities like this?
That's a good question. I figured you'd ask me that. Yeah, I think I would. I'd definitely go there and check it out, because I know how expensive it is to upgrade the components and add tanks, so on and so forth. I'd want to take a look at the monthly report of operations. Every month, your operator has to submit a report of operations, and it shows if you're exceeding your permitted levels for certain effluents. You have to control for nitrogen, ammonia, suspended solids, E. coli, that kind of stuff. And I'd take a real close look at that stuff, see how the park is operating, how the plant is operating, rather, and kind of approach it from that perspective. I probably would buy one if it was the right deal. But there's a good reason that people are scared of plants, and I can totally understand why. Now that I'm on the other side of that whole nightmare, I can see how to manage it. And, dealing with government agencies is definitely there's a learning curve there. So I wouldn't necessarily be scared of it to do it again, but I would be hesitant. Yeah.
I hear a lot of people. We don't own any. Well, we own private utilities. We own septics, but we don't have any package plants or treatment plants or anything of that nature. But I think one of the biggest fear factors that a lot of people have that are either in this business already or that are getting into this business, and they think about private utilities, are the changes in the EPA's regulations. Like they're worried about what happens if they shall force their hand and force me to do upgrades that maybe aren't necessary today or necessary in 10 years, but 12 years from now, I've got to spend $150,000 to upgrade my system to meet these new regulations. How do you control that variable? And I think that's where my fear comes from. I mean, we're not opposed to the private utilities. I mean, we're looking at a park here in Florida that's got a package plant and like an aeration system, that pumps out into like a spray field. And there's a licensed operator that runs this thing on a daily basis. I've spoken with him. I've spoken to other operators, and so it's just a matter of doing all the necessary steps of due diligence, but also on our side, where we would go into it factoring a very aggressive reserve account. We've been running the numbers based on, can we take enough reserves each and every year out of the cash flow to put us in a safe zone to where if we have to fully upgrade or if the system fails, whatever might happen that might be catastrophic, to where we can actually have a few $100,000 aside for a worst case scenario. And that's kind of how we've been underwriting this thing, because the system it's about 60 years old, and it could last for another 60. Who knows? I mean, it seems to be running well. They haven't had any issues with it. It doesn't have any hasn't had any like fines or issues or anything like that from the EPA. And
I've been there.
yeah. So in any event, so tell me about what you guys. I want to understand now, or I want the listeners to understand exactly where this park is today in terms of. I mean, you guys are pretty much you've turned it around. I mean, you took pretty much, it sounds like a catastrophe, and you turned it into a profit center. And so, what'd you pay for the park? And based on the occupancy level today and your cash flow and your overall NOI, I mean, what's this thing worth? I mean, how much equity have you built into this thing?
Yeah. So we paid $125,000 for the park itself. It's 41 spaces. Got 150 total from our investor. 13,000 of that went to back taxes, and then we had the 12,000 that we ended up spending for the stuff that we had to deal with on the lagoon right off the bat. So that's kind of where all that money went. But yeah, 125 for the park itself. As far as, cash flow and NOI, I haven't calculated it recently, but long story short, I think it's probably worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $550 right now. And I've got about $200,000 in park owned homes. So as far as equity built, and we owe, what I did, so when I first bought the property, no bank would touch it with a 10-foot pole and with a 1,000-foot pole. Nobody would touch it.
Sure.
And so I tried to fix up units and get the cash flow up and show profitability and so on and so forth. I think around year 4, I started calling on banks. And I think I called every bank within a 30-mile radius, wanted to work with a local bank. I knew that was my best shot, and nobody would touch it. I got maybe 2 or 3 meetings, and one that was promising. And in the end, he said, well, we just need 1 more year of profitability. And I'm like, I've been increasing the cash flow from this property by $15,000 to $25,000 a year consistently. And he's like, well, we just need 1 more year. So I go back to him the next year. Oh, we just need 1 more year. It was like banging my head against a brick wall. It was so frustrating. Could not get this thing refinanced for love or money. Anyways, I actually found another bank who had done some mobile home park loans. And finally, the 3rd year of trying, basically, I approach this guy, show him the financials. Of course, he wants a personal guarantee, et cetera. I'm like, whatever, I got to do what I have to do to get this thing refinanced. So I was able to refinance my initial investor out, which was good because I was a year overdue on my balloon, and was able to actually get another $50,000 out to put the additional homes that I wanted to put in there in. So that was last fall that we did that. Actually, last August, I think it was. And since then, I've pulled in the rest of the units that I need. That $50,000 went a long way. Got some really good deals on some homes, filled the rest of them up, and we're in the process of fixing up just the last couple homes, and we'll be good to go. So we still have about $200,000 of debt on the property, and I think it's probably worth $550,000 or so.
Okay, well, that's exciting.
With all the park-owned homes.
Mm-hmm. And so have you filled in all 41 spaces now with homes?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. And so you're going to do like a rent-to-own or just a straight rental or even sell them as cash, I'm assuming?
Yeah, if I can sell them for cash, I would do that, obviously. It's tough in this industry to find a cash buyer, especially when you bring in a nice home. I've got a couple of 2006 homes in there, which I would sell, wholesale value. They're worth $14,000, $15,000, but no one's got that kind of cash, to buy a mobile home in my area. Anyways, I know some markets you would, but in my area, you just don't find that. So I end up having to do the rent credit type thing, which I'm trying to avoid any kind of scrutiny from the government on the whole, predatory lending thing. But I do like a rent credit lease with an option type of a deal. And so yeah, I'm holding the paper on these homes, but if I were to sell the park, if I can get it sold, I'd just sell everything, one go. Yep,
gotcha. And so what would you have done differently? I mean, knowing what you know today, I mean, you know everything there is about private utilities now, and now you're a park expert. And so what would you have done differently, given you had the same knowledge today of when you first got into this and you first bought this mobile home park? Would you? The big question is, I mean, would you buy? I think I did ask you if you would have bought it. You said yes, you would have bought it. But what would you have done differently in terms of due diligence, or I mean, even just like from day one for the first year? Would you have had a different game plan going into it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. What I used to say, I would never buy another park with private utilities, which I probably have to rescind that because I probably would. Due diligence. What a great word or term rather. I didn't know anything about anything. When I'm 22 years, I barely graduated from high school. I don't know anything. When I'm starting out here, so I didn't know what a cap rate was. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't know. Due diligence wasn't even on my radar. I'm like, this looks like a good deal. I can get in there. I know how to fix up homes. I'll make it work. And that was kind of my attitude. And boy, yeah, that's where you kind of get the baptism by fire. But I guess if you never take that step, you'll never learn. But what I would do differently was definitely do some due diligence. I think the biggest thing was I went into it undercapitalized. I didn't have the cash to do what I needed to do up front. If I would have had that, even just $50,000 reserves to pull, a couple homes in, five homes in, say, search around, get some good deals, fix them up myself, that kind of thing, that would have put me way ahead of the game. But as it happened, I didn't have that money, and that was kind of what really slowed progress down for the first couple of years. Because then I'm working, a factory job, trying to saving up all the money I can to put into homes. But that's just such a slow process. You do one, and then 4 or 5 months later you do another, and then 4 months later you do another, and that just takes forever. So I think that's the big takeaway for me. Never go into a property undercapitalized. I could have dealt with the negative cash flow. I could have dealt with, the sewer problems, et cetera, if I would have just had a chunk of capital up front to work with there.
Yeah, I mean, you make such a very good point. I talk to a lot of guys that are either getting into this business or they're getting into, like, they're buying their first small apartment building of some sort, and something that's distressed or value add type play that needs some capital improvements done to it. And what they do is their plan is to, well, it will cash flow with, it's 70% occupied, but it will cash flow, at that occupancy based on what I'm paying for it. And so what I'm going to do is just take all the excess cash flow after, paying the debt service,
right.
and I'm going to use that money slowly but surely to either renovate the units or to buy used homes, in your case of a mobile home park, and bring them in. It's a terrible strategy because, number one, what ends up happening is you work for free. You end up running this property, and it's hard. It's hard work, and so you're not taking any. You're not getting any of the fruits of your labor. You're just seeing it going back into this what becomes a money pit, because that's what you've turned it into, and so you're getting no reward, and all you do is create resentment towards this property.
Yep.
Yeah.
For a long time, every time my phone would ring, and if I'd see it was the manager, I'm like, I'd just cringe. I'm like, what's the problem now? Whose sewer is backed up? What water lines are frozen? What alarm is going off? Like, what am I going to have to drop everything to go out and do right now? I totally agree with you. But that whole excess cash flow thing, especially when you don't have financials and it's a purchase like this, that is pie in the sky. You cannot base your projections off of the, quote, excess cash flow. I used to put together all kinds of great Excel spreadsheets, and, I'm going to get this home in this month, and it's going to make this much extra money, and, of course, going to collect 100% right. And then, this home in this month, and, oh, wow, look at here, by year 1.5, I'm 100% occupied, and we're making, $15,000 a month off this property, and I'm, I don't work, for anyone else, and, right, that's all pie in the sky. You gotta be realistic, but I worked with what I had and made it work. So you gotta start somewhere.
So are you in the process of purchasing your next park? I mean, are you actively seeking out another park investment?
I am actively seeking. Yeah, I'm actively seeking investment. Honestly, one thing that I'm really looking for right now is someone that like a sounding board, someone I can bounce ideas off of, because I'm looking at mobile home parks. I'm also looking potentially at apartment complexes. I don't know. It's not something I have experience in, but I think it can't be any worse than what I've done already. So, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm really almost looking for a mentor. I'm not like 29 years old, so I'm still fairly young here. So I could use somebody with some, even land development experience, et cetera. So what I'm doing now, kind of a two-pronged approach. I'm trying to network and find people that have a lot more experience than I do. And I'm also looking for properties. And part of that networking is also looking for potential investors, potential partners on projects. So that's kind of my focus right now. That two-pronged approach, kind of a partner / investor / mentor, and then looking for properties at the same time.
Tell me about you, because you have another business. You have a modular home business. So tell me about that. I mean, tell our listeners what a modular home is, because the average person doesn't know what the difference between a modular and a mobile home is, and there really is a difference to it.
Yeah, I suppose that's the third prong of my two-pronged approach is the modular home business. So I started that last year. A modular home is, for all intents and purposes, a stick-built home. It is a site-built home. It's built with the same building materials. You have 2x6 walls. You've got drywall on the inside. You have nice cabinets. You have good, you don't have plastic bathtubs. You've got fiberglass bathtubs, just like you'd go to Lowe's and buy. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, a modular home is a stick-built home. It just happens to come in sections, in modules. Okay, it's a site-built home, but it's just built off-site, just for a little bit, and then we put it on site.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's what a modular home is. And what was your next?
No, I was just going to say, tell me about the business. I mean, tell me about the modular home business. Is there a growing demand for this type of housing? And then, how does this type of housing, how does it differ from a stick-built home? I mean, and who is your market? Why would someone consider a modular built home versus a stick-built site home?
Mm-hmm. Couple things. So a modular home, the efficiency of a modular home comes in the way that it's built. It is a factory system. Okay, so you've got a home that goes down a line. Let's say you take a random floor plan. Any stick built home, you can figure a way to make that floor plan just about how you want it, whether you do it stick built or modular. You can figure a way to build it as a modular home, and then you get the efficiency of the factory system. You've got the guys in there, they're doing the same job every day. They're very good at it. They're very fast at it. They can bust these things out at a high quality and a high rate all day, every day. And that's where that's where you save money. So why you would go with a modular home is mainly for the savings, also for the time savings. A site-built home could take anywhere from 9 to 12 months to build, whereas I can get a modular home up for someone in 3 or 4 months. Okay, so you've got time savings. A big part of it, though, is the cost savings. You don't lose any quality. You can have all the same finishes. You can have granite countertops. You can have 9-foot ceilings. You can have cathedral ceilings. You can have high-end hickory, maple, cherry, oak cabinets, whatever you want. You have all the same options. It's just a faster and more efficient way to build. There really is a very strong market for modular homes in this area. We have a lot of modular and manufacturing around here. But on the East Coast, it's very popular because cost of labor is so outrageously high. You see a lot of really high-end homes going up on the East Coast. Around here, it's more of a ranch-style home that's going up, but we can do 2 stories. There are manufacturers around here that do apartments modular. You could build a 6-story apartment building and do it all with modular pieces. So it's more of a way of building than a product. A manufactured home, a mobile home, is a product. You put it on wheels, you drive down the road. A modular home is just a way of building.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. That's a good assessment. And so give me an idea, if you were comparing apples to apples, let's just say that we're talking about your marketplace, the location of where you sell a lot of your homes. If you had to compare the same quality grade of a site-built home versus a modular home, same square footage, same materials, everything, how much in savings are we really looking at here? Are we talking like a 20% difference, a 30% difference?
Yeah, you're probably looking at 15 to 20%.
Okay.
So, let's say, to give you an example, around here, a builder would build you a home just with basic finishes. You're talking Formica countertops, regular old cabinets, normal carpet, and probably vinyl flooring in the kitchens, for instance. They're going to start at $120 to $130 a square foot, okay, for the finished product by the time you get a well and septic and your foundation in there. I can do the same thing with a modular for $100 a square foot.
Wow, okay.
Same finishes, same quality, same floor plan.
And so what's the opportunity in your business? So you started this business a year ago. How do you make money? What is the opportunity at hand, or what do you see as the opportunity at hand for you? Is it just the one-off type sales where you're selling to people that have a piece of land or that have acquired a piece of land and they're going to put well and septic out there and they want to put a modular home in place, or are there other opportunities that exist?
So I'm focused right now on just residential homes. So people, will come to me with just a bare piece of land and say, I need a house. Okay, do you have financing? I'll work through that process with you, help you get financing. I work with a couple lenders. Okay, we've got financing, great. We've got your construction loan. Now we build. I do everything. So from the foundation to the final finish is what I tell people. Foundation to final finish, I cover it all. Now, if someone comes to me and they just say, I just want the home, I'm going to do my own foundation, that's fine too. But that's really my focus right now is residential modular homes. And the reason I actually started that was to finance, and this is kind of the overall picture here, is to finance commercial property acquisitions. So I'm planning to, and like I said, this just started in the fall, which is the slow time, did a couple deals last fall and in the spring. We got probably 5 or 6 homes in process right now, like 5 or 6 deals going right now. So I think we'll probably do 10 homes this year. My goal was 5, so I'll be happy if we do 10. Looking to double that next year. I think there's a demand there. There's the opportunity there. But really the point of starting that actually was to finance, and is to finance the acquisition of, more mobile home parks, apartment complexes. Okay. But that is what I'm focusing on, is the residential side of things. Nick, you could take it and do commercial. You can do, hospitals, schools, office buildings, apartment complexes. You could do it all modular, but right now I'm focused on the residential side of things.
I understand. And so once a home is put together, once it's on site, it's built, is it still considered a modular home? I mean, is that a disclosure that says, hey, this wasn't a site built home, this was a modular home, and how does that affect the value in the long run?
Good question. Yeah, when you look at a manufactured home, you say, here's a 1,500 square foot double wide, and it's on a foundation. It has a metal frame under it. That metal frame never comes off. You can't take it off, otherwise the home would fall apart. That's a manufactured home. It will never be anything but a manufactured home. Okay, and it will appraise less. If you got a 1,500 square foot, even if it's the same floor plan, stick-built home right next door, that's going to appraise more than that manufactured home. But if you have the same size modular home, from a bank's perspective and from an appraiser's perspective, that is a stick-built home. Okay. So they will appraise it and finance it exactly the same as a stick-built, and it will appreciate the same as a stick-built.
Okay, that's good to know. Are there any opportunities in doing entire subdivisions? I know you said that you're looking for a mentor in land development and also mobile home parks and other things as well, but is the idea of finding a mentor in land development, is it because that there might be an opportunity in actually creating an entire subdivision of modular homes?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. My dad still does. He actually does similar stuff here. He does manufactured homes, and he also does modular homes as well. He's a little bit more focused on the manufactured home side of things. But recently, he did a development with an investor group out of Chicago. They took some land, clear cut it, and they're putting up 88 units. It's 44 duplexes, 88 units total, and those are all modular homes, and they're loving it. They are absolutely loving it. Their returns are great. The price point is exactly where they need to be, and they're renting these things out for, $1,200 a month or so. And they're probably, I'd have to really look at the numbers again, but as far as the return on their investment, it's very good for them. They're very happy, and they can't wait to do the next phase of the project. So yeah, there's absolutely opportunity there for entire developments. Nothing but modular, and you actually see that around here. There are subdivisions that are a mix, and you go through there and you wouldn't be able to point out the modular versus stick-built homes. It's not like a modular home has to be, that double wide look that you're thinking of when you think of a double wide home. You think, it just looks like a rectangle with like a low roof slope, and it just looks boring, plain Jane. Nobody would want to buy it. Modular homes are way more exciting than that. If you get on my website, you can see some floor plans. You can see some elevation drawings of some homes, and you'll see what I mean. There is a lot of interesting things that you can do with a modular home to make them not look like what you would think of when you think of something that came out of a factory. So yeah, there's all kinds of opportunity for developments. And like I said, there are some developments even around here that do have a mixture of stick-built and modular. And like I said, you go through there, you wouldn't be able to point out the modular homes if you tried.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I'm actually on your website now. Yeah, there's some really nice looking homes on here. I'm looking at a 2-story home, like a big country style 2-story home. That's nice. Yeah, you would never know that that's a modular home. Very interesting.
Yeah, I do have some stuff on there that looks a little bit more mobile home, double wide kind of looking, but that's just a plain Jane floor plan, and it works for some people. In this area, like I said, there's a lot more ranch homes going up.
Well, no. I was actually looking at a really nice, 2-story blue home on your,
yeah.
It's 2,800 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, but that's a modular home. So how many sections would a home like that come
absolutely.
in? I mean, how many?
Probably be 4 sections. Okay. Most likely 4 sections. I mean, but you can have as many as you want. I mean, you could do a 6,000 square foot home. Mm-hmm. I work with a couple different manufacturers, and one of them last year built I think it was like a 3,200 square foot home. It came in 8 different sections.
Oh my God.
And it was going into a land home package that the builder was building for like $600,000. So there's definitely the sky's the limit, as they say, when it comes to what you can do with this system of building.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. So I want to ask you now, Joe, I want to ask you, what kind of advice would you give someone that's looking to, not the modular home business, but I want to switch back to the mobile home park business, because we have a lot of aspiring investors that tune into the show, and a lot that have an interest in investing in mobile home parks. What advice would you give someone that's just looking at their first park or looking to jump into their first park? What advice would you give them?
Oh boy. Yeah. Read as much as you can. Listen to podcasts. This podcast is awesome. Gather as much information as you can. Don't be scared to take the step though. If you have the cash to get into it, and if you have a good handle on, finances and how to run the property from a cash flow perspective, I would say, don't be scared to do it, but definitely do your homework, definitely do the due diligence. That is so important and something that I didn't do. And I wish I would have known anything enough to even, to even know, to have that on my radar. I wish I would have had that on my radar, but I didn't. So, but, do the due diligence, check the market out, make sure there's enough demand for the area. Definitely walk through the parks, definitely talk to the tenants. Your tenant base is what pays the bills. If you've got a tenant base that is not working and they're all on government income and they're not paying their bills, that's a problem. You're going to have a battle right off the bat. Not to say that it's a bad investment or that you shouldn't do it, but you just got to do that homework, and you just got to make sure that the money's going to be there when you need it to be there. And if it's not, what are you going to do to fix that?
Yeah, that's great advice. Fantastic advice. And you make a really good point, because it doesn't mean that it's a bad investment. Like you said, you made an example there of you've got a whole park on government assistance. They're not paying their bills, and there's going to be a headache of a tenant. Well, it still doesn't mean it's a bad deal. As long as you're buying it right and you're planning for those headaches that are about to come, right, and you've got a game plan to change things around so that it doesn't continually. It's not a perpetual headache that never goes away. Because you can turn things around from just complete losers to winners. You took a loser of a park that was struggling financially, that was in really bad shape. It sounded like. Treatment system was had needed major renovations to it, and you just had a rough tenant mix and lots of empty spaces. And now you've got a park that's putting cash in your pocket each and every month, and it's doing quite well. So. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And for those that you mentioned, look for different resources out there on that topic. And for those that are just listening in that haven't heard any of my other podcasts, we just released a mobile home park specific podcast. So it's called the Mobile Home Park Investing Podcast. So I think we're on our 7th episode there. And so if you haven't listened to it already, get out there and check it out, because it's literally just it's all critical content. There's no fluff, there's no crap. And we talk about how to find parks, how we build our database, how we direct market to owners, the operational side of things we discuss, and just really go into the meat and potatoes of it. So, and Joel, if you haven't listened to it, you need to check it out, my friend.
Actually have. Yeah, I've listened to a couple of the episodes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's good stuff.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Joel,
and even your regular podcast was great, man. That's just really, and not only yours but others too. It just helps to broaden your horizons. Exposes you to more ideas and kind of gives you some sort of a way to compare what you're looking at versus what other people are doing, how much money it's making them, the challenges that they face. Just gives you a better perspective. I believe in being a lot more well-rounded than just, it's important to focus, but you do need to at least have that perspective, where other people are at in other kinds of industries and businesses, not even necessarily real estate, but just having that perspective, I think, is important.
I agree with you. Well, Joel, now this is where we kind of round out our show, and we go into what I call the Golden Nugget segment. And this is where I'd like you to leave our listeners with one last golden nugget of advice or wisdom that may inspire and help them as they progress in their real estate investing career. What would that one last golden nugget be?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I wish that I would have changed about myself back when 7 long years ago when I was 22, right? I wish that I was a little bit more aggressive. I guess my golden nugget would be, don't be afraid. You be cautious, be calculating, but you have to be courageous enough to step out when the time is right. Nothing in life that you want is just going to, quote, happen to you. No one's going to go and do some due diligence and get a deal under contract and give you the paperwork and say, here, sign on the dotted line. It's not going to happen. You have to grab the bull by the horn if you want it to happen. And that's, it took me a little bit to really, understand that. I was a little bit passive when I first started out. Probably because I was running myself ragged, trying to get this problem. I'm not looking back with regrets. I'm glad it happened how it happened. It taught me a lot, gave me a lot of good perspective. But for someone starting out, don't be afraid to take the leap of faith. Do it. Be aggressive. Be smart about it. But even if you fail, pick yourself back up. You'll be fine. Just keep going at it. You have to take those steps, even if they're little steps.
Yep, that's great advice. Great words of wisdom. It really is. We all learn from our failures. I always make the joke that I fail once a day at least, and it's really true. If you're not failing, then you're not making any forward progress, and you're not actually out there trying hard enough, because everyone fails. And those that are those that we look up to, those that are the more successful individuals that we admire, that just means that they failed more times than we have. So you just really, I start every day thinking, how am I going to fail today? Because I know I'm not growing unless I'm failing.
Exactly. Exactly.
In any event, Joel, this has been a lot of fun, but I really appreciate you coming on the show here. And for those listeners that want to check out more about Joel and his company, his modular company, they can go visit him at nextmodular.com. Again, that's nextmodular.com. And Joel, that's all I have for today, my friend. I really appreciate it, and I wish you the best of your success. And looking forward to hearing about your next mobile home park endeavor. Would love to have you back on the show once you make that next acquisition, and hopefully you won't be knee deep in sludge or human waste on that next one. So you take care, my friend.
Try not to do that one again.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on the show, bud. You take care and have a great day.
You too. Thanks so much for having me, Kevin.
Congratulations for taking the necessary steps to achieving massive success through the highly lucrative niche of mobile home park investing. Be sure to visit our website, mobilehomeparkacademy.com, to download your free digital ebook version of the 21 biggest mistakes investors make when buying their first mobile home park and how you can avoid them. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe to our free monthly mobile home park investing newsletter, which is jammed full of valuable tips, tricks, and strategies to help you accelerate your path to success as a mobile home park investor. More information about this podcast and its hosts can be found by visiting mobilehomeparkacademy.com.